Tonight, the stunning admission from Luigi Mangione, now confessing to killing CEO Brian Thompson as he pleads guilty in federal court. Mangione admitting that he shot Mr. Thompson as the late CEO's own family sat in court listening to those chilling words. And new revelations from the 28-year-old, including how he posed as an investor to get details on where Thompson would be. The victim's family flanked with security outside of court. So what does it all mean for his New York State trial? Breaking right now, the Army announcing it's temporarily grounding all Apache training flights after that deadly crash, killing 2 soldiers. Roadside shooter, a man carrying a semi-automatic rifle, firing on passing cars at random. Multiple people tonight injured, including a mother and daughter. New round of rain clobbering the Midwest. Communities underwater. Powerful wind sending this sheet of glass crashing down. First responders carrying this driver to safety. Plus, Hawaii bracing for a possible historic landfall as Tropical Storm Lala intensifies. Fears over landslides and power outages mounting. President Trump speaking for the first time on the lengthy aircraft carrier deployment in the Middle East and growing concerns over the grim conditions on board. The commander-in-chief saying the deployment was, quote, not nearly long enough. Inside the multi-million-dollar art heist, new video of thieves breaking into a museum, ripping paintings off the wall, and creating a smoky diversion to get away, where police just discovered the stolen masterpieces. And striking gold will show you how construction workers discovered $10 million in gold bars and coins as they were laying sewer pipes. Nightly News starts right now.
This is NBC Nightly News with Tom Llamas.
And good evening. It's great to be with you on this Friday night. We begin with an extraordinary scene in a Manhattan courtroom with Luigi Mangione confessing to shooting and killing United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. Mangione pleading guilty to federal charges, interstate stalking, resulting in death, as Thompson's family came face to face with him inside that courtroom. And for the first time, Mangione revealing he posed as a potential investor in an email to United Healthcare so he could track Thompson's location at an upcoming conference. The goal, this right here, to shoot him, a moment caught on a security camera. Now his defense team is moving to dismiss the more serious charges he faces in New York State, including second-degree murder, with that case just weeks away from going to trial. Mangione is set to be sentenced by a federal judge in December as he faces life in prison. The big question tonight, can the state pursue their murder case? We start with Stephanie Gosk at the courthouse.
Tonight, Luigi Mangione is a confessed killer, telling a federal judge he shot United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson. In court, Thompson's family, seen outside surrounded by a security detail. His mother and wife became emotional as Mangione, in his own words, described the crime. I traveled to Manhattan, he said. I then emailed United Healthcare leadership, posing as an investor at a firm managing over $50 billion in assets. Mangione says they wrote back, telling him the location of the conference Thompson was attending, adding, I used a 3D printer to make a part of a gun. I shot Mr. Thompson in Manhattan, and he died. Mangione shot Thompson, a husband and father of 2 children, in the back. Today, Mangione showed no remorse for what he did.
This was not a spontaneous act of violence. It was deliberate, calculated, and premeditated.
The judge accepted the 28-year-old's guilty plea on stalking charges. Prosecutors say they are seeking a life sentence. The Thompson family releasing new photos of Brian today and writing, while nothing will ease the pain of losing him, we are grateful that the federal justice system has held the person responsible for this heinous act accountable. The dramatic hearing drawing hordes of journalists.
This is a wild scene outside the federal courthouse right now. Take a look at how many members of the press on that side of the street, only to be outdone by how many members of the press are on this side of the street.
The defense team says Mangione had battled severe back pain and the healthcare system.
He believed that the system had failed him and destroyed his life.
Federal prosecutors showing little sympathy.
We live in a civilized society governed by the rule of law. We debate, we disagree, we protest. We do not commit murder.
But that is what Luigi Mangione did, a crime that shocked the country and uncovered a torrent of anger towards the health insurance industry, with some even supporting the cold-blooded murder. Today, the police commissioner had her own message.
To those who idolize Luigi Mangione, I say this: violence is not a cause, murder is not a message, and a killer is certainly not a hero.
Stephanie joins us live outside the courthouse. And Steph, we know the defense clearly has a strategy here with this guilty plea today. Explain that to our viewers.
Yeah, they do, Tom, and they are arguing that the state case is now double jeopardy, meaning trying someone twice for the same crime, and that's why it should be dismissed. But it is not a certainty, and it will be up to the state judge to decide, Tom.
Stephanie Gosk leading us off. We have more breaking news tonight. The Army has just grounded their fleet of Apache helicopters from training flights after that deadly crash in Texas earlier this week. Ryan Nobles joins us now. And Ryan, we're also learning more about the crew that was killed.
Yeah, that's right, Tom. The Army calls this a temporary stand down of all Apache helicopter training flights and says, quote, it will remain in effect until we have a better understanding of the root cause of the accident. Investigators are now looking into that deadly crash during a training exercise at Fort Hood, Texas, that happened and ended up sparking a massive fire. The Apache attack helicopters are widely used by the Army and are flown by 2 crew members. The Army calls it the most advanced aerial fighting vehicle in the world. Tonight, the pilots have been identified as Chief Warrant Officer 2 DeAndre 2 Huey and Warrant Officer Seth L. Olmstead. Both were from Texas. Tom?
And our thoughts with their families tonight. All right, Ryan. We're also tracking some danger on the streets of a Houston neighborhood today where police say an armed gunman allegedly shot at moving cars with a high-powered rifle. The suspect, who was injured when officers returned fire, was taken into custody. Jesse Kirsch has the alarming details.
Harrowing moments when gunshots rang out in Houston today.
He's shooting in the streets.
Watch the frantic scene as a Good Samaritan warns people to take cover.
Don't go that way, man.
Police say this gunman, armed with an automatic weapon, opened fire on multiple vehicles this morning.
There's been a bunch of shots fired.
The suspect, who police say is in his 30s, allegedly shooting 3 people, including a mother and her daughter. Police say officers ordered the suspect to drop his weapon.
The officers engaged with the suspect and discharged the weapons multiple times. The suspect was struck more than once, and he was transported to a local hospital.
Police say this was an isolated incident, adding they do not know what the suspect's mental state was during the attack.
Man, if you'd have seen it, you thought he was in a movie or something.
Houston police say all 3 victims are in stable condition. Meanwhile, the suspect has not been named or charged. Tom?
Jesse, thank you. We are also still monitoring that dire situation in Indiana. And across the storm zone, the flood threat is growing tonight. Rainfall rates of up to 3 inches an hour in some areas are possible, and rivers are rising, threatening to wash out even more homes. Maggie Vespa is outside of Indianapolis again for us tonight.
Tonight, new rounds of heavy rain falling across an already soaked Midwest. In Champaign, Illinois, a woman stranded in her vehicle. This pair of firefighters carefully carrying her to safety. Wicked winds in Normal, Illinois overnight, causing this sheet of glass to shatter. The rain swelling record river levels even more.
It's heartbreaking.
Northeast of Indianapolis today, Christy Stewart and her family ventured into the flood zone. Her sister by kayak to check on Christy's house in Anderson. Christy's daughter filming this video, finding the first floor largely spared, but then showing us
Basement flooded.
Christy's on disability and doesn't have flood insurance.
All you can do is cry and pray.
It's a pretty helpless feeling.
Super.
She tells me the family evacuated overnight after smelling gas in the water. Meanwhile, state authorities say conditions in the raging Mississinewa River forced them to suspend the search for 19-year-old Matthew Morey, who jumped off a bridge into the water with friends Wednesday night. His mom in agony, saying the star high school wide receiver's just days away from starting his freshman year at Purdue University.
I see somewhere asking, where's my mom? My mom and dad. Like, I'm hurt and I need some help. And so we're not there and I can't get there.
A mother's desperate plea amid widespread devastation, with more rain in the coming days.
And new tonight, authorities near Muncie say a woman was killed in these floods, likely swept away in her car. And with more rain on the way, forecasters say hundreds more homes could flood by tomorrow. Tom.
Such a dangerous situation there still in the Midwest. All right, Maggie. Also tonight, a state of emergency in Hawaii as Tropical Storm Lala is forecast to turn into a hurricane heading towards the Big Island. Our Morgan Chesky joins us from Hilo tonight, where, Morgan, you're feeling an updated sense of urgency with this new track.
Yeah, Tom, we certainly are, and conditions only expected to grow worse here in Hilo and across the Big Island tonight as people are bracing for what could be the first hurricane on record to ever make landfall here. Now, let's look at the path of Tropical Storm Lala churning through the Pacific. It is anticipated of becoming a Category 1 hurricane before striking some point late tonight or early tomorrow and then sideswiping the other Hawaiian islands over the weekend. And people here, Tom, are taking this storm incredibly seriously. Hawaiians stocking up on food, water, emergency supplies, as well as sandbags, due to the increased risk of flooding here. In some areas, the Big Island could see upwards of 25 inches of rain in about a 24-hour time span. Now, while the brunt of this storm is expected to hit the Big Island, the island of Maui and the city of Honolulu also expecting incredibly heavy rain. Tom?
Hawaii bracing for impact. All right, Morgan, thank you. We are also getting late-breaking news of a major earthquake hitting Indonesia tonight. Bill Cairns joins us now live in studio. And Bill, there's now a tsunami warning as well?
Yeah, coast of Australia, throughout the island chains in Indonesia. This is a 7.7 magnitude. So this is a big one. This is an area that's very vulnerable to tsunamis. This earthquake was shallow, too. The depth was only 6 miles. The more shallow the earthquake, typically they can produce bigger tsunamis. We don't have confirmation yet, Tom, that a tsunami has occurred, but we're waiting to find out those details. We know from the shake map and already pictures coming in that there's a lot of destruction and devastation.
So many earthquakes this summer. All right, Bill, we thank you for that. We have an update on the USS Lincoln tonight. President Trump downplaying concerns about poor living conditions on board the aircraft carrier and saying the Lincoln's deployment was not nearly long enough. Tonight, Gabe Gutierrez is getting reaction from families of sailors on board.
Tonight, President Trump dismissing reports of poor living conditions aboard the USS Abraham Lincoln, a key aircraft carrier supporting the war against Iran.
Family members of U.S. service members are concerned about the conditions on board the USS Lincoln.
Well, no, that ship is moving. No, they're not. That ship is moving right now, or very shortly.
The Pentagon now sending another carrier to the region after the more than 5,000 soldiers and Marines on the Lincoln had not made a port call since December, a record. Relatives had complained of plumbing issues and limited fresh food. A U.S. official says one sailor went overboard and was quickly rescued. The president pressed by NBC's Julie Sirkin.
No, not nearly long enough.
Danielle Rappa's son is on board.
I do support the president overall, but, I have every right to disagree with a comment.
We'd spoken with Melanie Stowe yesterday.
It's been difficult.
Her daughter's been deployed since last year.
What do you make of those comments?
Well, I am a Trump supporter. I feel that it was more of a comment that the job hasn't been completed yet, more than the sailors need to stay out there longer.
She had a more pointed response for Defense Secretary Hegseth.
I would say that he should fly his butt out there to take a look.
Tonight, the Navy's acting secretary is calling those on the Lincoln the epitome of American strength, and he's slamming the media for trying to paint them as victims. Tom?
Gabe, thank you. President Trump also tonight touting new crime stats from the FBI, the biggest one-year drop in violent crime since the Bureau began tracking those stats nearly 100 years ago. In 2025, murder and manslaughter dropped by more than 18%. Rape offenses decreased an estimated 7.6%. And robberies, the FBI says, were down 18.5%. When we return in 60 seconds tonight, we'll tell you about the quick-thinking air traffic controller and how he prevented a tragedy with 2 American airline jets in the air. Plus, the art heist caught on camera where authorities found the stolen masterpieces worth millions and how they caught the suspects. Welcome back. An incredible ending of an art heist worth millions. Surveillance video showing thieves snatching the paintings right off the wall in an instant. Keir Simmons on how they got the paintings back.
The brazen art heist taking less than 3 minutes. Newly released surveillance video showing the moment thieves stole 3 paintings back in March. The thieves first breaking and entering through the front door of this museum in northern Italy in the middle of the night, then racing to grab the works by French masters straight off the walls. One masked individual setting down this Renoir, valued at about $3.5 million, to take a second painting by Cézanne, worth $7 million. Both paintings then handed off to an accomplice waiting outside. Tonight, officials from the Italian Art Recovery Squad announcing all 3 paintings have been safely recovered. Authorities telling Italy's leading news agency, ANSA, 5 suspects from Moldova have now been detained in connection with the robbery. Adding they tracked the gang down using clues recovered from the scene of the crime, including a fire extinguisher used as a diversion against the museum's caretaker. It's the latest in a series of high-profile art heists across Europe, including the theft of the French crown jewels, stolen from the Louvre last year in broad daylight, and still missing. Keir Simmons, NBC News.
And we're back in a moment with the construction workers, 1 second laying down sewer pipes, the next finding $10 million in gold. So, who gets to keep it? That's next. We're back with a potential disaster averted after 2 American airline planes sharing the exact same call sign were approaching and departing Phoenix at the same time. An air traffic controller noticing the flights both numbered 2482 and acted quickly to provide clear commands to each one.
I've been working air traffic for 25 years. I've never seen 2 aircraft pretty much merge with the same call sign. That's pretty incredible. It could have been disastrous, but I'm glad it all worked out.
The FAA is investigating how all of this happened. Also tonight, take a look at this. Construction workers in Belgium struck gold while doing demolition as they were laying sewer pipes. When they cleared the rubble, they found this hoard of gold in a cellar wall. Police say those bars worth an estimated $10 million along with the coins. They're now being stored in a high-security government vault. It is unclear tonight if anyone who actually found that gold, i.e. the construction workers, will actually get to keep some of it. When we come back tonight, when the unthinkable happened on 9/11, he joined the Coast Guard. Now he's caring for one of the most enduring symbols of liberty this nation has. This week's Great American, next. Finally tonight, our series Great Americans, where we talk with those who have achieved so much about their lives and this country. Tonight, he oversees the park rangers at the Statue of Liberty and also served our country in the Coast Guard. And now he's making it his mission to remind visitors of Lady Liberty's promise. Our Great American tonight, Reneel Langdon.
What I love about America is the opportunity. This is a place where you can come, and if you're willing to work, I think the sky's the limit.
It's one of America's most iconic landmarks, Lady Liberty, shining over New York's harbor, a poignant reminder of the promise that built America. It's a view Park Ranger Reneel Langdon says never gets old.
I mean, working at the Statue of Liberty, it's pretty incredible. You know, sailing in on a ferry every morning and seeing the Statue of Liberty, you know, I kind of pinch myself every day.
Langdon immigrated to America from Grenada in 2000, arriving in New York City as a teenager. Then, about a year later, the September 11th attacks would change him and the country forever.
On 9/11, I was in the city. When we went outside, it was just complete chaos and panic, and it really kind of set in that I needed to do something. I needed to serve. That day absolutely changed my life.
Inspired to help protect his new home, Langdon enlisted in the Coast Guard. 4 years later, after finishing his service, Langdon returned to New York, searching for ways to continue giving back to America.
Applying for every federal job I think I qualified for, and the Park Service was the first to give me a chance. So I felt the Park Service in a way sort of chose me.
He started on the ground at Liberty Island, climbing from maintenance worker to park ranger, and now supervisor.
When I put on this uniform, I feel like I'm part of something greater. There are a lot of passionate, dedicated people who's put on this uniform before me. I'm so privileged to have landed in this position.
Langdon also oversees Ellis Island, where more than 12 million people from all over the world entered this country. An immigrant himself, now telling their stories.
I find it absolutely poetic that I'm here telling the story of millions of people before me. I feel quite privileged being able to work here and help keep that history alive.
Welcome to Statue of Liberty, folks.
For Ranger Langdon, the Statue of Liberty is more than just a landmark. It's a reminder of our responsibility as Americans.
When visitors come here, I hope they feel inspired. I hope they see themselves in her story. And if you look at her, she's obviously not sitting on her pedestal. I like to think that she's taking a step forward. We're standing here on this pedestal of freedom, but like the Statue of Liberty, it's not enough to just sit or stand, but that each of us have a responsibility to move liberty forward. It's something that we all have to participate in.
A beacon of hope, lighting the way for the future of our great nation.
When you look across the harbor, and as long as you see that torch up there and you see the statue standing, I think there's hope for America. I think we find that inspiring.
And we do too. Reneel, keep up that great work. That's Nightly News for this Friday. I'm Tom Llamas. Thanks so much for watching. Tonight and always, we're here for you. Good night. We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.